the 25-26 school year. That sounds awfully funny to say that, 25-26. Hiring updates. We are sitting excellent as far as that goes and having positions filled in the middle school and also middle school, high school. So you can see with a couple PE positions, English position, a middle school math position, and a middle school special education position. Many of these you're already aware of. They've been kind of filled within the past couple months and everything, but we're in a very, very good place when it comes to middle school and the hiring process for teachers. We really could just use just a couple more paraprofessionals here moving forward, but that will fall into place. It always does, and we always find excellent paraprofessionals to come work on our team. Just also new teacher boot camp for these positions. We will have our brand new to the district teachers in for boot camp on July 22nd. And again, that's just talking about the Windom Way. We've talked about that before, and it's great to get together. We have had very positive feedback over the last number of years, whether it was when I was at the elementary and now being at the middle school going into third year already. Every time we've done this, there's been positive feedback from those new staff members that are coming in and learning about the Windom Way. So we're excited to have this day again and team up with Mr. Joyce and others that'll come in and share all of that great information about how we do things in Windom and what it means to be a Windom Eagle. So that is it for the middle school board report. Do you have any questions for me at all?
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, for the high school report, Mr. Joyce.
Good evening, everybody. Happy summer. It's very, very nice to join here when it's really hot out and enjoy the air conditioning. So just to hire an update, we are still seeking a CEO facilitator. We've got some movement on that, so we hopefully are approaching the point of having some closure on that hiring, but for right now, we are still seeking that. As Mr. Nielsen pointed out, we're entering the paraprofessional hiring season. We got a couple of needs at the high school as well, so we're looking forward to having some great people join our staff. Teaching staff update, some movement that's happening, but we've got, I think, really close to full positions with a couple that were approved this evening, along with a couple that we hope to approve at either the next meeting in July or the first meeting in August. So I'm feeling very good about where we're going to be as far as teaching staff moving forward into August, which is a good feeling. So summer PD, I've attended a couple of opportunities here this summer. One, the MASSP Summer Conference. We had great keynote speakers. We saw, the gentleman's name is striking me, but Nice Bike. Have you ever heard his presentation? Nice Bike. He was there to present to us again, and that's always good to hear. A lot of really good sessions, though, that I attended. A lot of great collegial work with a lot of principals from around the state of Minnesota. And it's always fun to hear what's going on in other schools and, you know, with people that are always kind of in the same boat. We're always in the same boat, and things that happen in Windom are happening in Wayzata or happening in Thief River Falls. You know, we always think we're kind of in a vacuum or something, but all this stuff is pretty same throughout the state. So a lot of PD that I'm excited to share with our staff coming up. We were able to attend a Navigating Difficult Discussions Situations Strategy training session. That's the first of 3 we attended up in Redwood. I say we, myself, Mr. Nielsen, Mr. Barfnick, Mrs. Frank all attended. That was a really good day, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of days here. I think one in the fall and then early in the winter there. So good opportunity just to learn about how to have those conversations when we don't want to have that conversation, and we kind of avoid those types of things. So how do you have it in a way that's meaningful for everybody involved? So that was very good. And then we've of course got CPI training coming up that actually Miss Amanda Wilson will be leading a lot of that along with Miss Lundy. So we're looking forward to those opportunities coming up yet here as well. Office hours continue to be 8 to noon in the high school throughout July, and then our regular office hours will resume on August 11th. That's when we're back for regular 8 to 5 office or 8 to 4 office hours throughout the summer. So as Mr. Nielsen pointed out, we got new teachers coming in on the 22nd next week for boot camp, and then the last piece there is just our fall eligibility meeting is August 4th, and that's going to be at 7:00 p.m. in the elementary commons for all of our fall sports participants. So we're getting, I don't want to say that's so close because I think we just lose sight of summer if we're looking forward to everything coming up. But people do need to get that date on their calendar. It's important, but you also need to enjoy the next couple of weeks of summer because it's really a nice time of year. And then I'll save the rest of that for the handbook review, which is coming up shortly. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Joyce.
Thank you.
And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the premiere, the special, first time ever, special administrative report by the one, the only, Amanda Wilson.
Wow, no pressure. I've been worried I might be sick over here, but that really helped, so thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you for creating this position and trusting me with this position. Special education is something that's near and dear to my heart, and you've all seen me here before. You kind of know that about me, but being in a district where such a priority is put on that and making sure that we're doing right by our students and our teachers to get them the supports that they need, I really appreciate the trust that you've put in me for that. So thank you. Along with that, knowing that we haven't had special education board reports before, there are a lot of processes and vocabularies and things like that that are just a little bit different in special ed. So if there's ever anything that you want me to specifically be touching on in my reports or questions that you have, please let me know, and I'm happy to include whatever it is that you'd like to hear from me. Things that have happened over the last several weeks. I was lucky enough to get to go with Jamie and Dane to the Compass Institute conference up in the Twin Cities. Spent a lot of time learning about how we implement multi-tiered systems of support systems. I slaughtered the way we say that, MTSS systems, specifically at the secondary level. So that was really, really helpful, and I'm excited about continuing to work on that with our district. There is a lot going on for getting ready for the 25-26 school year. A lot of it right now has been scheduling and building schedules for paras that make sure that we have the people we need and the places we need, supporting the kids that we need, and a lot of moving parts there. So that's been a big task right now that we'll continue working on. And beyond that, it has been gearing up for the different professional development sessions that will go on. There will be de-escalation training that we do for all of our staff in August about when we have students who are getting disruptive in the classroom and affecting the learning of other people. What are things that we can do to help with that, to keep the learning going on? Brian has mentioned CPI training is going to be coming up that will be led by our school psychologist, Lisa Lundy. We're going to be doing differentiated instruction training for teachers when we've got students at such very different levels within our classroom and they're all attending the same lesson. What do we do to make sure that they're all getting what they need from that lesson, and making sure our teachers have the tools for doing that effectively. And then with our special education staff, many of them are new to special education, and we want to make sure that they know what to do and feel comfortable in their positions and all of the special paperwork and things like that that go on. So there's a lot of onboarding trainings that we're putting together for that as well. And the last piece, summer special education services are well underway. Special ed doesn't stop in the summer. It definitely takes a step back. There's not nearly as much of it happening during the summer as there is during a regular school year. But we have extended school year services that have been happening for our preschool through 12th grade students to make sure that they're not, the kids aren't losing progress that they have made over the course of the year. So they'll meet with teaching staff over the summer just to practice and keep their skills up so that when they come back in the fall for the full year, they're at about the same level they were when they left. And then birth to 2 services for our infants and toddlers. Those operate on a 12-month calendar. So the services happen all year long. So we've had Sarah B. and Heather Wackel, Leah Bjorklund, Victoria Patterson, and Amy Vinker have been the teams that are working with those 2 different programs to make sure that kids are getting what they need. So we really appreciate them taking the time away from their summer vacations to be meeting with our students. Looking ahead, we've got a conference coming up that all of our paras will get to attend in Worthington on August 13th. They're very excited about that. I've had several people stop me just in the last couple of weeks to make sure that they know when we're going and how we're getting there, and they're very grateful for the opportunity to do this training. Our Rising Eagles program staff are going to a training in Slayton on how we use the STAR Autism program, which will be the basis of that program going forward. And then August 27th, we will have early childhood screenings where kids can come in up from 3 to kindergarten age. They meet with our health team, they meet with our teachers, different therapists, and just find out, first of all, there's assessments to see, is your student developing the way that they're meant to be, or are there concerns? And then beyond that, what sort of resources are available within the community to help with any concerns that might get identified. So it's a busy time of year, but it's always busy in special education. So like Dane said, we have para positions open, so it's a really important role. And if you guys know somebody great who's looking for a position that really, really has an impact on kids, we would love to talk to them about those. So thank you.
Any questions for Amanda? Okay, great job. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the superintendent report. Mrs. Frank.
All right, good evening, board members. The legislative session came to an end during the month of June, and the associations took the month to go ahead and communicate with schools. So I've heard the results of the legislative session several times, so I'm just going to summarize them for you, and you can ask questions if you have any. So the inflationary factor that was put into place in 2023 did not change. So that just means that every year districts are slated to get somewhere between 2 and 3%, and we can count on that. Now the idea was that that would be in addition to other monies that were set aside for the formula. That of course did not happen. So we just get the inflationary factor this year, and it came in at 2.74%. Okay. Unemployment insurance was funded at the last minute for the biennium. So for the next 2 years, the state has set aside money to fund that unemployment insurance for our hourly employees. So that would be our paras, our food service, anybody that was hourly that doesn't work in the summer can collect unemployment. And we were really worried that that burden was going to fall on the districts, like really, really worried about that, but it didn't. So we're okay for the next 2 years. So that is a sigh of relief. Compensatory basic skills. Windom is going to see an increase of $55,000. This is all based on free and reduced price lunch and direct certification. So Windom is fortunate in that we're going to see an increase because several districts are not going to see an increase, and rightfully so. We have students that are in need that we will do our very best to support them as we can. So we're not going to see a decrease in compensatory. We are going to see a decrease in library aid, a decrease of $20,000. Student support aid remained unchanged. This was communicated differently at first, and I see there's actually a typo there. It's not a decrease, it's just going to remain the same because the base remained at $40,000. So if we were above the base, like if we were a Wayzata or St. Paul Public Schools, then our funding would have been decreased, but we get the base in library aid or student support aid, so that won't change. But then special ed transportation is now going to be reimbursed at 95% rather than 100%. And so I asked Peggy and Holly to estimate the value, and that is roughly a $16,000 decrease in reimbursement. So not too bad. So that's kind of where we came out in the legislative session. We also have lots of funding sources to make this budget work, right? And we all know that. We have verification of 48 VPK seats, so that is great news. So we'll be in the VPK program again for this year. We've received $58,000 in Pathway 2, and that's over the next 2 years. That funding we've received for a long time, but it is for students who meet specific criteria, and it's for preschool. Okay, so we'll likely use Pathway 2 for our 3-year-olds. We'll use our VPK funding for our 4-year-olds. We'll put this puzzle together and we'll make it work, okay? Our ADSES application was approved. So we've been approved for the same behavior specialists and the behavior intervention paras that we were last time. That worked really well. As you recall, we put our efforts into the middle school because we had some things that needed to change there, and we did that with our ADSES funding. So we have that again for the next 2 years. And then in addition, we wrote in a high school intervention teacher because we're just finding a need for an intervention teacher in the high school. There just isn't one. and ADSUS approved that as well. Now remember with ADSUS, it's a reimbursement program just like special education, and it reimburses 60% of what we spend. So it's not like a grant, but it's good funding. Title I and Title II applications are in progress, so we should hear more about those soon. And then I put some pictures in my report. If you scroll down a little bit, Holly, there it is, the workmen from Toro. So we just want to give a big thank you to Toro for their generous donation of the workman utility vehicle. Our buildings and grounds crew is really very excited. So thank you, Toro. All right, and lastly, post-election survey results are in. The board is going to have a special retreat on July 21st I apologize for that typo there. I think we changed the date a few times trying to get a time when everybody was available. But we're actually meeting on Monday, July 21st to review the election survey results and then talk about what we're going to do next to address our facility needs. All right, any questions?
Thanks for putting in there the gratitude we have for Toro and Mrs. Clausen for finding all the funding opportunities that Toro is willing to do. What a good crew we have. What a good partnership we have over there. So thank you, Toro. Any other questions for Mrs. Frank? Okay. We will move on to item 12 for the Board of Education report. Any board members have any updates for the rest of us? Mrs. Frank, will you turn off your microphone? Thank you. There's been a subcommittee reviewing the survey, so we're well prepared to discuss on the 21st. So we won't have to read through every comment and because there was a lot of comments. Thank you, people that took the survey for sure. So that we'll have a little bit more to still delve. We'll still do a deep dive into it, but that's one of the things that we've done in the past several weeks. Anybody else been active on items other than what we're discussing on the rest of the board? Okay, well then we'll continue to move forward. Okay, as teased a little bit ago, we get to talk about the draft of the student handbook for I agree, 25-26, the 25-26 school year. Mr. Joyce is going to lead that.
Feels more real, like we're a quarter century through the 21st. All right. Didn't the millennium just happen? Whenever all the computers are going to shut down. Anyways, Dane and I guess we'll bounce back and forth. I'll just lead us through. We've kind of reached the middle high school portion of the meeting. We've prepared hours and hours of information for you, so sit back and enjoy, okay? We tried to point out a couple of just the highlights, okay? Otherwise, the handbook is as approved in the past. If items are highlighted in the handbook, that's because we are considering an alteration, an amendment, a change, addition, deletion, whatever. And then in my board report, I just tried to summarize all of those that are being proposed for changes, pending your approval. So we'll get right into it. And if you have any questions, just let me know and we'll talk through them. But otherwise, I'll just keep rattling off. First of all, page 5, this highlight just came about as a result of talking to a couple of teachers. They see instantaneously how often a kid is missed. I'm looking at 340 students, and I miss if a kid missed fourth hour 6 times. I don't know if that happened right away. So all we're asking is keeping the days the same, but just note 18 days is a lot to miss in a semester, and we have checks and balances in place to avoid that from happening. We still send letters out. We still have attendance contract meetings with families. We're doing all of that stuff. The 18 number is simply like you get to 18, you have to appeal whether you get credit or not for the class, okay? And in the state of Minnesota, if they complete requirements for the course, we can't deny credit. That's against the state law, okay? But what we do is we say, look, you have to put the minimum amount of seat time in to justify that credit. And if you get to that 18, we're possibly making you repeat that course, okay? That is a conversation that I do not ever want to have, okay? And if we get to that point with students, we've asked for some sort of a medical verification because usually it's due to medical appointments that's keeping them out of school, okay? But all we're asking with the added language is that teachers communicate to the office, hey, I've noticed Johnny has missed my 3rd hour class 4 times and it's September 20th. Okay, thanks for letting me know. We're going to look into this and see what's going on so we can make sure that Johnny avoids getting to 9 and then 13 and then 18. So just the check and balance in place, and all we're asking is just responding to what was told to me by a teacher, like, is there something we can do to be proactive to help? And when we attend our attendance meetings, they tell us the biggest indicator of whether kids want to come to school or not is if their teachers care. If they know their teachers care, they show up. And, you know, they think it's my job to tell them to come, right? But if their teachers say, hey, I need you here, I missed you, it makes a really big difference. So we want to encourage them to be there. So that's what that's all about. Page 6, next page. That one is just a little bit of information. For the first time last year, we put in something called a parent excused absence. Some students, you know, maybe it was the way I conveyed it, but it's like, well, I have 3 personal days. It's not an entitlement, guys. It's if there's something that falls outside of the norm and your parent wants to excuse that, we're just dropping that down from 3 to 2, okay, just to encourage more positive attendance, 1 per semester. That's what that is, okay? So if you need to use a parent excuse day, it doesn't mean you get to the semester like, well, I still got the day there. I better use it or else I'll lose it. That's not really what it is. So if it doesn't fit into the rest, but the parent feels the student needs a day off, it's just down from 3 to 2. Page 9 is the next update. And the 2 updates there. Number 1 is just the open campus and losing open campus privileges for the remainder of a quarter for any unexcused absences. And then I work with Mr. Taylor on pulling that. Of course, that applies only to juniors and seniors. At the bottom of page 5, there was some confusion this year, and I put this in here because we had the conversation. I had parents tell me, well, that was skip day. So that there is no skip day. We don't have a sanctioned skip day. So I put language in to say there are no school sanctioned skip days during the school year, okay? And I didn't think you needed to spell that out, but I need to spell that out. So parents know there is not a sanctioned skip day at Windom Area High School for seniors in the spring.
Should that be in capital letters?
I don't know if it'll matter, Bruce. But maybe. So I had a couple of conversations with parents, and they're like, well, that was skip day, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah, they skipped, so it's an unexcused absence. So nonetheless, we try to avoid skip day by having great things like the senior trip and things like that, but we still end up with some years they decide we need to have that skip day. So last year, any students that skipped, if it was an unexcused absence, they had to make that time up just as anybody who would have missed school on February 10th or whatever date. So, and they did that before we walked to graduation. So page 12 is the next update. And that's just re-emphasizing that backpacks must be left in the locker during the school day. We run into a few issues every year where a couple of kids think they need to carry their backpacks around, and we remind them they need to be in the locker. This isn't a change. This is just a point of emphasis because we're seeing a few kids bring the backpacks around, and staff have asked us to maybe make it a point of emphasis this year. So that's what it will be. All the way down to page 30. I believe. Yes. I'm sorry. Oh, page 17, yes. Just in the guidelines there for progressive discipline, this is just a point of emphasis and just indicating that the classroom's a building block, and really that's where discipline starts, is within the classroom and the student-the-teacher relationship. When classroom attempts are falling short and the learner needs extra support, just understanding that the progressive discipline guidelines are a guideline, and in some instances, somebody might receive a consequence that's in excess of what's listed or short of what's listed, okay? Based on the situation, based on other pieces of information that it's really easy to look at this in July and it's pretty black and white, and we live in a very gray world at school oftentimes. So we have to make the best judgment for, I feel, the greater good and the student involved. That's what we have to look at. So that's what that is. And then I think we're on page 30, right? Okay. Page 30 talks about bring your own device, and I'm sure you're asking, why would you need to bring your own device? We supply a Chromebook for every student, and that's a fair, legitimate question. And I had the same question for students who brought this up to us last school year. So I had a number of students who are seniors that take courses that are for college credit through PSEO and things like that. and a number of the pieces of information that they're getting through their campus websites weren't very accessible using the Chromebook. And they were trying to make the argument of, if I'm trying to emulate my college experience here, I'm not going to have a Chromebook next year. I'm going to have this device. Now, I, being the skeptic, said, you're probably just doing this so you can connect to Apple Messages or Snapchat and use it throughout the day without having your cell phone out. That was ultimately what I felt. And I'm not saying I still don't think that, okay? But the students presented to me, with the aid of a teacher, a very well thought out, and I put this on them. I said, you need to come up with a reasonable policy that I could reasonably bring to the board next year, but we'll pilot it, okay? So what this is all about is educational use only, and it has to be students who are taking courses for college credit, okay? And they have to have a compelling reason to utilize this device that wouldn't otherwise be met by a Chromebook, okay? And this does not exempt them from our electronic device policy. So if the student's using their own device, but they're Snapchatting or they're on, Apple iMessage, that's a violation. So they would treat that just like we would any other violation with a cell phone. It must be approved by the technology office. They have to have antivirus protection on it. If there's any violation, they're subject to the electronic device policy. And then if they meet all the qualifications, the ultimate signature then is the tech office, but then administration. They have to bring this to the office, and if everything is filled out and their parents agree, they get a little sticker that indicates they've met those criteria and they can utilize their own device because they need it for their educational purposes. So, and I had students tell me, I'm taking this course, and it's actually a Minnesota West course, and they had a number of slide decks that they were trying to study from and things like that. And the Chromebook was a little bit of a deterrent to what they were trying to do. It was making it a little bit harder. So was it impossible? No. But these are also juniors and seniors that I feel like if they're trying to distinguish themselves as college students and adults, we have to at some point treat them that way a little bit. And they are the ones that kind of came up with the bones of this policy. So the next update then is page 32. And page 32 is a point of emphasis, really, the teacher rubrics for engagement grades. I don't know if Mr. Nielsen has anything to chime in on that one, but we tried the engagement grade for the first time last year in quite some time as we moved a little bit away from some of the full standards-based grading to what you would call more of the traditional grade scale. But we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just tests and quizzes determining whether a student passed or not, but we wanted to encourage some of that effort and some of those employability skills that we're hearing from employers are so important. And we don't often hear that somebody's losing their job because they don't know how to do the job. It's because they have other faults. They can't stay off their phones. They're not able to work with other human beings. They don't work hard enough, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to adjust with that. And 1 year in, we found some differences within the way people were implementing it. And we want to make sure we're streamlined on the implementation of that, and all teachers are aware this is kind of what we need you to do for an engagement grade. And here's a sample rubric that you can use, but we are telling you that what you should be looking at is how involved students are in the class, how collaborative they are they asking questions, are they getting help? When you assign homework, are they attempting the homework? That's really what's making up the engagement grade in that 20%. So, and it's on page 32. I kind of just have a comment on that. I hope you guys can see that if it's on the right page.
It's 31 for us.
Is it 31? Okay. So, and that really isn't a change. It's just, again, a point of emphasis. Page 33, I believe I've got the open campus process, and that's just talking with students on the fact that how we're going to be issuing open campus passes as the school year starts for our juniors and seniors. So we don't have a rush of people waiting at Sonia's desk at 8:15 on Tuesday, September 2nd. So we review past academic data, and if students qualify and parents sign off, there's your pass. If they don't qualify, maybe by second quarter you'll qualify. So page 34, we just have a little bit of verbiage regarding the involvement in commencement. Students completing the requirements above, and those are our graduation requirements, who are in good standing are eligible to participate in the graduation commencement ceremony. Students may be denied the privilege of participating in the commencement ceremony at administrative discretion related to events that may cause the student to not be in good standing at the time of graduation. So that has stood the test of time through multiple legal challenges in the state of Minnesota, that we ultimately have the right to determine who gets to walk and who doesn't. And I can tell you that's a really, really, really important thing for students. And I try to do the best we can to make sure that when students are walking, they are in good standing and we can say, yes, you can walk. Because it's one thing, we can't withhold a diploma if a student has met the requirements, but we can say whether a student can walk across the stage or not. And that's a big deal, and it remains a big deal, and I want to keep that a big deal. And if students are not in good standing, they should not be walking, period. Page 35. This is probably the most, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a significant change, but just we're trying to articulate our academic ineligibility, and we just said, instead of saying every 2 weeks and it feeling random at times, even though it wasn't random, it was every 2 weeks, we're just going to plop the dates right in there of when we're going to pull an eligibility so that people are not surprised by this. Teachers are not surprised. One piece that we did add in as far as language is concerned is that grades should not be adjusted to a failing grade if it's not a failing grade, okay? So if a student's passing a class, we shouldn't be adjusting a grade to a fail because they're missing an assignment, okay? If they're actually missing the assignment, it's causing their grade to be a failure, then it should accordingly show up that way when you enter the grade. It shouldn't be adjusted downward simply to get an assignment in, okay? But also, we put the dates directly in here, and what we kind of did was we always tried to wait to about the 4-week point to pull an eligibility list anyways. And what we're saying now is that by September 23rd, we're going to pull an eligibility list, and you may still be eligible as long as for the next couple of weeks you attend Eagle Elevation and get help from teachers. But on October 14th is when we are going to pull our first ineligibility list. And if you are still failing, you would need to sign an appeals form or get that grade up in order to participate. Otherwise, you are ineligible. Okay? And then by November 11th, that is the end of quarter one ineligibility list. You are ineligible for any failing grade, and you must have an appeals form signed in order to participate. So we kind of just repeat that process with the equivalent weeks for every quarter of the school year. Okay? So now there are basically 12 times throughout the year that an eligibility list will be pulled. Now, some might say there's not a consequence if you're failing on September 23rd. Yeah, there is. The consequence is you need to go get help because we want you to pass your classes. It isn't just about sitting out of the football game. It's about getting help to pass your classes. The consequence will come on October 14th. If you're still ineligible because you didn't get the help, you will sit. Okay? So we're trying to be just a bit more, and this was a few months of discussion with our leadership team, believe it or not. Our coaches expressed a lot of concerns with the way we were implementing the policy, okay? It was clear cut last year, but also it felt at times that students were kind of caught in that, as long as I get this signed, I'll be able to play. And it created a lot of hoops, and it wasn't necessarily fair to the activities, okay? I don't know if it always led to passing classes in the long run, and that's what we want is students to pass their classes. So we want students to be responsible and get help if they're failing, and this does kind of put it on that student to get help. Our teachers are very responsive to helping students, and I am hoping that this is a better way to look at this. Our leadership team reviewed this. Our entire teaching staff has had access. I don't know how closely they're following this summer, but this will be just a little bit of a change next year, and I feel like it's a welcome and a positive change and it is more consistent with what a number of area schools are doing with their ineligibility. So, are there any questions on that one? That's probably the biggest piece of this policy change, or update to the handbook, I should say. The next piece, we are, responding to the world as it is. So we have an academic honesty and integrity policy, and we have an AI policy, okay? And this was drafted with the help of our English department last year. And it is, I didn't want to create a 30-page document because, there's plenty of resources out there, but it's like, what do we really need our students to be able to know to do? Because AI is a slippery slope. And if you're using it to replace what a human ought to be doing, that's not appropriate, period. You know, and that's as simple as I can put it, because we can't use AI to replace our thinking when our thinking is what's needed. If you have a creative writing assignment, that's you being creative. And maybe in that process, your English teacher says, maybe in the brainstorming phase, you can utilize a little bit of AI. That might be something that's allowable. But when it actually comes to the writing, that's got to be you and your brain and what's coming out of your mind, okay? So we kind of looked at this and said, what's acceptable usage? Tutoring or homework help, supporting the writing process with grammar, spell check, engaging in discussions about ethical use of AI, analyzing data. It's very useful at analyzing data if anybody's ever used it. Using technology to help reviewers study, using AI to assist in work that's then acknowledged or cited. Should teachers allow the use of AI in coursework? Expectations for responsible uses will be shared by the teacher, so there aren't gotchas when it comes to that. Unacceptable would be completing or assisting in completion of assignments or essays, completing tests or quizzes or assisting with completion, fabrication or false or manipulated data, cheating, plagiarizing, engaging in academic dishonesty. Plagiarism for AI-centered and generated content will be treated as a violation of academic integrity policies that are laid out in the student handbook, and then inappropriately citing work or failure to acknowledge. And then these are helpful steps for teachers. So those are some useful websites that can check if a student has been using AI, whether there's probable AI use. Again, those aren't perfect either. It can tell you probable AI use, but I've seen some papers get put into that, and if it has to be like a paper that's heavily cited within the document, the AI will say, yeah, it's likely AI. But it's like, well, I had to use a lot of citations within the paper. I really didn't, copy it. It just, I had to use a lot of the wording. So then it's working with the student on, you need to paraphrase better so that there's more of your thoughts along with what's in the document. And I view it as a very teachable moment because I don't know that AI is going to disappear from the landscape. I feel like it's something we're going to be utilizing, and the students we're graduating are going to see it in the workforce. So, and they have to use that, and then we've got consequences. So first violation, what happens? First violation is going to be teacher conversation, student completes the assignment again, and then teacher calls parents to make sure they're aware. Second violation, assignment's done at half credit. Alternative assignment may be given at teacher discretion. Half credit is the maximum score. Teacher informs admin and the administration contacts parent. Third violation, student takes a 0. Meetings held with the student, parent, teacher, administration. The student may need to repeat the course. Okay, if we get to that point where that third time they're using AI. We utilize the MinSkew AI document as well as some things from MDE as well in drafting that. And then in our student handbook, we just put some definitions in there: plagiarism, cheating, fabrication, and then what student responsibilities are as well as teacher responsibilities, and then what are the consequences for academic dishonesty, which we try to keep very consistent with what the consequences are for using AI inappropriately. And I did cite ChatGPT as a useful resource in generating this information. So I felt like that was appropriate. So there is a use for it, and it is there, and it does make things more efficient. But what can't be replaced is that I have to be able to look at this and say, does this make sense? There has to be human input into what's being put here, and you can't just regurgitate what AI gives you. So, be our first year with kind of an AI policy to guide where we're at with that. The last piece then is page 46, and that is just again a point of emphasis. I think we and everybody I feel like would agree last year was a welcome change as far as the enforcement of cell phone policy. Saying it has to be in the locker, and if it's seen at all in the classroom, it's a violation. We had I don't know if I'd say 180, but it was quite a bit different than what it was the year prior, just by having that communication. But the biggest key to that is consistent enforcement. And we try to make sure it isn't part of what the teachers have to deal with, but because the cell phones are still in the building, it is still a piece of what we have to deal with. So we're not going to the point of saying they need to be put in a pouch, but that would be the next step. And I did entertain that in the spring when I got really annoyed with dealing with cell phones. I know it was an emotional moment for me, But I floated that out there for a time because I really was tired of listening to that and not talking about teaching and learning, you know. But we had a much better year, but we need to have a better year this year, and that starts with saying, if you're supposed to use it at your locker in passing time and you're a senior and you're up in the circle on your phone, you're clearly not at your locker. So that's a violation, and that phone needs to go away. So that's going to happen this year, and I'm going to have 2 kids in my house that are mad at me about it. I get it, whatever, okay? Just stop paying the bill, I guess. But it's an adjustment, and they need to realize that it has to be at the locker, and if you have to use it, check messages, it has to be at the locker. And if you need to use it, bring it to the office, and we'll let you use it if there's some emergency going on. But if it's not an emergency and we don't know about it, it's a violation, and you're probably just doing it to distract from what you should be doing, which is learning in the classroom. So just an emphasis there, and again, that's asked for by teachers, that we do a better job, even more than we did last year, at just enforcing that they need to be in the lockers. So, any questions on the illustrious handbook?
I like how you clarified with AI. Like, you used it to help you because your goal here was to have a product delivered whereas for our students, the goal is for them to do the learning and the work. So I think you did a really good job of clarifying how it can be used and then how it can be used to cheat. So I'm glad that you have that in there, and I think it's appropriate that you then use ChatGPT to help you write it, because it shows, hey, but we're not archaic here. Like, we recognize it's a tool that will be helpful appropriately. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for walking it through. Any points or questions, clarifications for the team? Awesome. Thank you very much.
And I know that there may be things floating around. Maybe staff will contact you, whatever. I hope that they'd go to me first. But if anything comes up the next couple of weeks, let me know. But we would just look for approval, final approval on the handbook on July 28th, so we can start making plans for orientation and all that. So.
Sounds great. Thank you for all your hard work. Okay. Next is another discussion topic, also led by Mr. Joyce, on the review of the high school intervention plan. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. If we have more or less viewers online, I apologize, or you're welcome, okay? So we, as you saw in the ADSYS application, got some funds approved for us to hire a interventionist in the high school. Our focus in the high school is just a little bit different than what the middle school is looking at. We're looking specifically at academics, and we're looking specifically at reading and reading comprehension. So it fits right in with goals that we have as a district. What we are doing and bringing to you now is maybe something that's a year ahead of where we thought we'd be, because of some opportunities that we've had that we didn't expect, okay? So I want to pitch to you the idea of intervention implementation. I want to say thank you to Amanda Wilson as well as Valerie Spielman. They sat down with me and we walked through what this would look like. Valerie does a great job with our middle school intervention. So Amanda, feel free to jump in at any time if I'm falling short on anything, or if I get just hoarse in the voice, okay? All right. Okay. So why we are doing this, first of all, implementing interventions at the high school level is proactive. I know you're saying, well, proactive, these are high school kids. These kids have been receiving this support, or a lot of these supports, up through 8th grade, and we felt for quite some time that we fall short on that expectation as high school students. The support's gone, and we see too many kids that we know don't have the skills to be successful in 9th grade for reading comprehension in the gen ed classroom with no supports, and they don't qualify for special education. So what do? Well, now we've got an opportunity to help them. So by working with teachers, we can help and intervene with students that are working below grade level. Students are going to be identified based on the data, and the data is showing us that more and more students are reading below grade level, okay? And we have to help them get up to grade level beyond just what we can offer in that gen ed classroom. So providing an extra layer of support for struggling students will increase time and efficiency for all staff by allowing all teachers to meet the needs of all learners. Because right now, there's nothing worse than a teacher feeling like they don't have efficacy. And when our teachers feel like they can't help a kid because they know this kid needs so much more support than they can provide, it's really a tough thing to take for a teacher, because they just want to help. So we're hoping that this support will help our teachers. Number one. Timeline. We're going to call this year 0. all right? And we're going to trial our draft plan that we have here along with some Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions. Amanda talked about MTSS, multiple tiered systems of support. Tier 1 would be that first level. Tier 2 is the next level, okay? So we're talking the base level along with the next, and really the base level is what they're doing in their gen ed classrooms and how our intervention teacher can help out our gen ed teachers right in that gen ed classroom. So what are activities, what are group opportunities, what are readings that can be done for all the students that all benefit. Tier 2 is those students who maybe are working below grade level that have to maybe be pulled out of a classroom for a few minutes, or eventually something we'll look at for Tier 3. Year 1 will be next year, which we'd look at full implementation. We're going to go into year 0 with kind of a sketch idea, knowing that we might have to adjust throughout the year based on what the data is showing us, what the student needs are. Year 1 would be 26, 27. We look at full implementation within the gen ed as well as the pull-out opportunities, and we might be looking at a trial Tier 3 where students are pulled out altogether for a elective credit in, or an English credit in that intervention class. Okay, again, not a special education class, but an intervention-led class by an intervention teacher. That would be something we'd look at in the 26-27 school year, potentially. Year 2 would be 27-28, full implementation of all tiers 1, 2, and 3, and then we're looking for sustainability in 28-29. We know the ADSYS funds go for 2 years, so we're feeling confident for 0 and 1. For year 2, we've got to show that this system is working so that we can look for a renewal of that ADSYS funds. Some definitions are in there. Amanda already talked about MTSS. I did a very high-level talk about what Tier 1 means. Tier 1 is everybody. Tier 2 is supplemental to those that are performing below grade level. Tier 3 is intensified. It's students that we've seen for a number of years are falling short of grade level, but they are not special education students, okay? So what supports are we giving them? May they need special education supports? That's possible. It's very possible. But we've got a lot of students who are reading 2, 3 grade levels behind that do not qualify for special education services. In the high school right now, we have minimal supports for these students. This will at least offer us a person that can help them. Slide 5, how is this different than special education? Special education is intensive skill instruction and remediation for students with disabilities. It can be thought of as Tier 3 on steroids, okay? So it's a pumped up version of Tier 3, okay? Student skills will grow and develop, but the instruction they receive also includes accommodations and modifications that tailor that instruction specifically to needs caused by their disability. Keyword there is that disability. They have a disability there. To be eligible for special education supports, they have to meet criteria of one of the 14 disability categories and have gone through a process that demonstrates that Tier 1, 2, and 3 supports are not sufficient. So we have to show that the general classroom stuff, the pull-out supports, as well as maybe a Tier 3 where they're in a separate classroom for intervention, still are not helping this student learn. There must be a disability there that's causing that student the inability to grow in this department, okay? Page 6, this is a flow chart for MTSS that again is kind of a district-wide flow chart. I'm not going to get into each of those boxes. I think it's for informational purposes for your sake and for the public's sake to know. But it kind of talks about all the universals as well as supplementals and then intensive. This will be important for us to work with our teaching staff on so they understand how can I utilize this new person that we have in a partnership to help students learn, okay? And that would be that Tier 1 support. And then if there are some Tier 2 students in there, they're still a part of my classroom. How can I utilize this extra support they're getting and not be, oh yeah, and this. It's not more assignments. It's support to help on assignments that you have. You need to work on these skills so you can be successful on the assignments you have in class. Page 7, we just try to identify what year 0 will look like from our ideas right now. So in year 0, July and August, we'd be looking at hiring an intervention teacher. August, we'd be looking at planning meetings to identify 9th grade students. We really want to focus in on 9th grade students. If we can get to the point of having some success here, we'll probably pull in some 10th graders. But to start, it's going to be freshmen, okay? We've learned a lot about freshmen as they're coming into high school. We're offering some more study hall opportunities in our schedule for freshmen next year. We're offering a bit more math help for our freshmen. this would be more reading help for our freshmen. So we just want to make sure they start off high school on the positive side. September, planning meetings with core teachers, research-based intervention supports implemented with students performing 2+ grade levels behind in coordination with the gen ed teaching staff. We'll be using their spring data to start us off until we have new data. October through January, recalibration and continuation of research-based supports implemented in September, and then we're going to tier and steer those students based on their performance. If they're showing us they can perform at grade level and they're getting into the classrooms with a lot of success now, great. They don't need to be in the intervention system anymore. If they're, that's pie in the sky. It doesn't happen like that always, but we hope that happens. What ends up probably happening though is we end up having more students that utilize the service. And then February through May, again, continuation refinement of the research-based implemented plans, meetings and communication with gen ed teachers, and then looking at, do we need to change some ideas for year one? Is what we're doing working? Can we scale it up at all? Maybe can we include some more students in the sophomore class? Do we need to have a full intervention class that maybe offers elective credit for students for their schedule? So this is, again, a year ahead of where we thought we'd be, but we're doing this because of some opportunities that we have. So is there any questions anybody on the board has? Or Amanda, anything okay.
Is there much difference between this and the middle school or elementary intervention plans? Like the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? Or is it kind of the same structure?
Basically identical structure. The only difference is the high school schedule is very different. And middle school is more like the high school schedule, a lot more like the high school schedule than it is the elementary schedule. But in their high school, they look forward to high school and hey, I can take this class and I might finally get some freedom to do this. And some of our freshmen find out like, yeah, that's 8 classes, that's 8 separate opportunities to get homework, things like that. And if you have a skill deficit, that's 8 opportunities to fall behind. So it will look different for some students. And what we're going to try this year is just, can we pull them out of a class and work with teachers to pull them out of that class to get a little extra support within their schedule? If we move to that tier 3 with intervention, it might be a whole separate class in their day. And that would be for students that really need that whole 45 minutes a day of support. So that's the biggest difference you'd see. But as far as strategies used, working with staff, it's going to be very, very similar.
I can see that if they're getting intervention in middle school, then and all of a sudden they get the freshman year and it's dropped off on there, you're swimming pretty much out there alone. And this here is a way just to continue on. I guess this is one reason why the test scores, isn't it? The elementary is good, was really good this last year, and then I thought the senior high was good, but it was less. Is that kind of because they didn't have an intervention?
That could be one of a number of variables. We did with our freshmen last year, we had a paraprofessional that was hired to help speech and language. And we utilized a little bit of her time to help a little bit with some freshmen. They don't take state tests in freshman year, they do as sophomores. And I don't know what will happen with their test results, of course. But any supports that you have in place that get pulled out in high school, along with the difficulty and rigor of the courses, and just having 8 separate courses in the way a high school functions, and you're getting ready for the adult world then. It's pretty real. And students in 9th grade do struggle from time to time, a lot more regularly than you'd hope, because I feel that support is not there. And when the rigor increases, but you pull away one of the supports, it's like you put the basketball hoop at 8 foot in middle school, but then we're going to raise it to 10 feet, but we're going to take shoes away or something. It just doesn't work for a lot of students.
We don't want new experiences to lead to frustration.
Well, I'm really glad you guys identified this as a need for the high school. When Mrs. Frank first mentioned that you were digging into this, I was really pleased. I think the elementary school and the middle school are doing a phenomenal job with the interventionists. I've heard so many positive stories of a student struggling 2 or 3 months with an interventionist, and they're near the top of the class in that category. It's just amazing. So I'm hoping this is just the beginning, and we'll have as many supports interventionally in high school as we're able to offer in the elementary and middle school, and to set it up. I think you have it set up for success. You have a plan. We're not just bringing somebody in and say, here's your computer, figure it out. We're setting them up for success. We have a plan. We have a pathway. We'll be able to measure success. And we have a way of the state picking up a lot of the bill on this one. So this seems like a win-win-win. Thank you for all the work put into this one. Yeah, we have the other section. So we'll maybe bring this up again under the additional items for the board. If someone wants to consider bringing it towards action under number 22, we'll do make it a resolution and bring it to action and take a vote on it for item 22, if the board supports it. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Joyce or any of those that worked on this? Thanks again. That's awesome. Okay. Item number 15, you get to take a break, Mr. Joyce. We are going to review and approve via resolution for our long-term facilities maintenance 10-year application and plan. And we have Mrs. Pepper and Mrs. Anderson to help us go through this one. Take it away.
I get to take the lead on this one. So this is something that gets reviewed and approved every July. We have to take all 4 items from the board packet to MDE and submit it by July 31st. There's 4 things, one being the statement of assurances. If this is approved, Jamie will be signing this. And then let me pull up my spreadsheet 1 second. I'm going to go over the revenue projection. And I won't go into too much detail, but I'm just going to point out a few things. So for the long-term facility maintenance, our formula is based on enrollment. So that is how they calculate it, and you can kind of see here. Let me see if I can make it bigger for you guys. I kind of highlighted it here in blue. They kind of projected, we submit a lot of data to MDE, and they take that and make it here, and throughout the next 10 years they kind of leveled it off and kind of predicted it that way. I don't know if I missed any. Okay. And then I'm going to go down. The next thing that I want to point out once I get to it, there's a lot of data in this, and I know you didn't get the Excel spreadsheet. You got a PDF just based on how it's formatted in the board packet. Here I want to just highlight the grand total for LTFM revenue. We don't get to calculate it. Again, like I said, it's based on enrollment and how we're doing. Down a little further, it kind of breaks down how it's based on state aid versus levy. So state aid we get directly from the state, and then the levy is received from our taxpayers. So you can kind of see the breakdown, and it kind of fluctuates, but it stays pretty steady throughout the next 10 years. Let me see. And then shortly after that, you can kind of see it has existing LTFM bonds. And here, you might remember from years past and just kind of your knowledge on it, we have a building maintenance bond for our Highland building updates. Here you'll see that it'll fall off after fiscal year 2031. And then those funds, instead of going to our debt service portion of the revenue, will go towards the general fund portion of the revenue after 2031. All right, now I think I'll go to the expenditures. And I'm just going to point out just a couple things here, but so in each of the lines, we kind of projected 5% increase. It's hard to predict inflation or costs, so we just left it at that. So that's kind of where you can see the number increase. And then going down here, I kind of just pointed out a few things. You might go, why is the interior surfaces so high this year? Just to remind you that we replaced our carpet in the blue gym lobby, so that is why it's high, and then it drops back down to 5,000. And then we just kind of put a few things on our horizon so they don't, like painting the gold gym and carpet, potential carpet, replacing carpet in the circle. So that's kind of where we kind of increased in 27 and 28 and then back down again. Not saying we're doing those things, we're just forecasting. And then a couple other things that I want to point out, legislation change. So we can put in the LTFM plan or application. Roofing projects over 100,000 is in its own line item, and there's more information on that. You might have, I can't remember if it's been talked about in board meetings. I don't know if, do you?
Yeah, this just changed here with this last legislative session, so they really don't have everything out. But as Holly mentioned, used to there's a few things that you could do another facility maintenance bond without going to approval of your taxpayers. And now they have added this roofing, and it's got to be at a minimum of 100,000 per site. So once again, you can't do it at all 4 buildings. It's got to be 100,000 if it's at the middle school, high school building, or if it's 100,000 at the Wind Fair building. Obviously, it's not going to be the elementary building since that's only 4 or 5 years old. But so this is some new, and there'll be more information coming as they release this information. But once again, this is exactly what we did with the Highland building that you talked about. That's going to fall off in 2031. So we talk about, we know our roofs are in good condition, but we also know roofs don't last forever. And so as that, and as Doug looks at them and makes recommendations, the board might have an opportunity to do something like this in the future.
The only other thing was we just have the resolution, and if you approve that, we can again take this to MDE for final submission by July 31st. Any questions?
LTFM, that's the like and kind category, right? Like you have to, nothing new, just replacing what's already there with something repaired.
That's correct.
Or new, but just not different. Right, like for like. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Otherwise, is there interest? Does anyone want to make a motion for a resolution? Okay, thank you. Motion and a second. Any final questions? Since it is a resolution, it is a roll call vote. We'll start over with you, Lynn.
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Brianne? Yes. Myself, yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Holly. Or Mrs. Anderson. Okay, next up, we are going to talk about the 25-26 referral bonus. Mrs. Frank, will you describe this to us, please?
I would love to. 2 years ago, we implemented a referral bonus. You may remember that. So it is rewarding our employees for recruiting potential applicants, right? So this has been a very successful program, I'd just like to say. So this past year, we paid out a total of $3,200 to our employees for recruiting new employees. And they do that by talking positively about our district and talking about, you know, all the reasons why someone would want to work for Windom Public Schools. And there's a million reasons why, but when people are talking about those, then it attracts more applicants. So we were able to recruit 4 teachers and retain 3. We recruited 9 paraprofessionals and retained 6, and then 1 maintenance and custodial staff. And then our employees were paid the referral bonuses as listed in your packet. So if someone who works for Windom Schools recruits a teacher, it's a $400 referral bonus. If an employee recruits a para, custodian, or food service worker, it's a $200 referral bonus. and they do need to complete 30 days of employment before the bonus is paid out. I bring it to you tonight because I'd like to renew this policy that we created a couple years ago. It's worked for us really well, and it expires soon. So if you'd like to renew it, it's before you tonight.
Okay, let's start with a motion, please.
Approval?
Any questions? And this is just an extension, no other changes made, right? And I see till May of next year. So we'll review it again next year. Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. Next, we're going to review our auto insurance. Mrs. Anderson.
This spring, we were reviewing our current coverage, and us as the business office would like to recommend moving our commercial auto coverage to EMC insurance effective July 1st. This is in order to be covered under our current $4 million umbrella liability insurance. I just want to point out a couple of things. The premium increase for the year was approximately $125 more, and then it would increase our deductible from $500 to $1,000 for our vehicles with comprehensive and collision. Nothing bad against Bank Midwest. I haven't worked with them, but Peggy's only expressed great things with them. They just were unable to compete since all of our other insurance is with EMC, so it was much easier to move our coverage to be covered under that umbrella. Any questions?
I just want to clarify this for just a minute. So our auto insurance was locally with Bank Midwest, and our liability umbrella was with EMC. And so the umbrella did not cover the vehicles. And so I thought it was really important to make sure that we had umbrella coverage over our vehicles as well. So we did check into it, got a quote, several quotes, and ended up putting our vehicles with EMC where all of our other property liability is, makes the most sense financially.
Let's start with a motion, please. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, next up, we get to take action on the policies that were reviewed at our last meeting. Again, they were in the board packet for us to review once again. May we start with a motion, please?
I move approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on these policies? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Excuse me. Item number 19 is to approve this year's substitute rate. Mrs. Frank, would you present for us, please?
Yes. So really the only change is under the teacher section here, because the other positions are all dictated by their contracts, and you would see that in there. You know, like for the paras, for example, it says that the sub rate is 85% of the listed contract wage. So the only change again is in the teacher section here. We increased it from $175 a day to $180 a day. We kept the tiered system, so if they work 1 to 5 days in a month, yep, right there, thanks Holly, it's $180. If they work 6 to 10 days within that month, it's $195, and if they work 11 or more days within a month, it's $220. This tiered system has worked really well for us because it rewards the people who want to work often, and so they always want to get over that 11 days so that they can get paid the $220 for all of those days. So that's worked really well. I increased it by only $5 because we are leading in our area as far as substitute rates. So that's, any questions on that?
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Can we start with a motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Item number 20. We're going to take a look at our strategic plan and see how we're doing. Mrs. Frank.
Hey, it's been about a year since we've looked at our strategic plan, so it's time to dust it off and take a peek here. So I color-coded it for you just like I did last year. So green means that we are fully implemented, yellow means we're partially implemented or working on it, and then red is we haven't started yet. So let's go ahead and look at goal 1 under the focus area of safety and well-being. So goal 1 is we will uphold the priority of physical safety for staff and students. So our status with that is that we've completed a facility self-assessment by the Minnesota School Safety Center. Crisis Go and Alice trainings are really important, and we have those scheduled and built into the fall in-service, and we do that every single year. So when we have new staff hired, they automatically go into Crisis Go and Alice training, which is our safety protocols. So that is just a habit that we've gotten into. The reunification drill took place last October. That drill is something that we do every 3 to 4 years. It's not something we do every single year because it requires us going to our safe havens and actually running through the reunification between students and their parents. We did a drill last year, and the year before that we actually had a real unification event, and the system works well. So I feel that we are very solid in our reunification system. All right, next, okay, we talked about the self-assessment by the Minnesota School Safety Center. It's been completed. Results were presented to the board a year ago. The crisis team continues to look at those results and refine the ongoing training of staff, and I think that we already covered above. It's just all about making sure that our staff remember protocols and how Crisis Go works and how to take attendance on Crisis Go and all of those things, and we're constantly reviewing that with everyone. All right, the next goal, goal number 2, we'll create a supportive and welcoming learning environment. So I made note here that the focus has been on ensuring that all students are feeling welcome. The FACES position, so Antonio's position, that continues to be funded through the REMIC grant. Antonio constantly addresses barriers such as language, transportation, basic needs. Students working to support families, and accommodations are made to support these students. And so there's a lot going on to help everyone feel welcome. The Student Senate engages in conversation routinely to provide feedback in this area. The American Indian Parent Advisory Group met in June. They are very happy with their children's experience at Windom area schools. And then the second step curriculum was actually purchased and implemented during the last school year. It's been implemented by our counselors and social workers, and it's all about social and emotional well-being of students in classrooms. And that is implemented K-12. All right, goal 3, we will close the achievement gap by preparing students for career choices. So again, all of these statuses are green. Routinely, instructional coaches help implement new strategies for inquiry, critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration. So we have a lot of peer coaches for a district our size. So we have Jeff Huska as our instructional coach through QComp. We have Christy Miracle as a halftime peer engagement coach. And then we have James Burton as halftime peer engagement coach. And so the 3 of them are always in classrooms, constantly supporting the development of our teachers. Then I made note of the curriculum cycle that has been developed in the last couple of years here. The science curriculum for grades K-12 was approved in May of 24. Elementary literacy curriculum was adopted in May of 25. The preschool comprehensive curriculum was adopted in May of 25, and we continue to follow that curriculum cycle for review and adoption. So the way that works is that MDE reviews their standards, they make adjustments, they publish them, they give districts a deadline as to when new standards need to be implemented, and we follow them, right? So after they adjust the standards, then we go into our curriculum adoption review so that we're always having curriculum that is addressing the most updated standards. And I think that system has worked really well for us too. All right, we have opportunities for students to participate as leaders, so that's objective 3.3. We have student senate, CEO, captain's council, which is new and been highly successful. Girls and boys states, lots of opportunities for students. Objective 3.4 is all about the school board maintaining a diligent stance to monitor curriculum. So that's why you've seen our adoption committees come to you and present their decisions so that you can approve curriculum. All right, next one, goal 4, engage families and create the best support for the learning environment. This is where all of our work is right now, and many of these are yellow, meaning that we're working on it. Okay, so we have our Infinite Campus system. That's our new information system. This comes with a parent portal so that all parents can track assignments and grades for their children. Also, we engage our parents through a monthly newsletter that's sent by each building. These have really good viewing rates. I'm sure you see them every month. The newsletters that I write have very good viewing rates, 400 plus views each. Family engagement nights take place at the elementary and the ECFE program. Next, we have objective 4.2 to increase participation in family engagement opportunities. The elementary has hosted several family nights. They will continue to host several family nights, but we do need to increase engagement. So Corey and I have been brainstorming on how we can get more families to show up for those nights. So we'll report back on that. Okay, there it is in goal 5. We'll provide teaching and learning that is responsive to our students' needs. So objective 5.1, there it is, the MTSS system that we've been talking about all night, right? There are many strengths to our current system, and Joel, you touched on them a little bit already. The MTSS system at the elementary has been in place for a decade. The MTSS system at the middle high school has been in place for almost that long. And now it's time to look at how that effective system works or can work in a high school. And so that's what we've been digging into. As you know, Dane, Amanda, and I all went to the MTSS conference a few weeks ago to learn about how other districts are doing this and to also learn about what resources we have available from the state. And there are free resources available, so we'll be accessing those and getting some advice from people who have done this before. So we'll keep on rolling there. And remember, too, that the multi-tiered system of support is great on the academic side, but it's also great on the social-emotional side. And so when we look at, giving students layers of support, think of it that way. Your tier 1 is your core instruction that you have in every single classroom. And if students are successful with that, then we layer an additional support. And if they're still not successful, then we layer another layer of support. But that also it works the same on the behavioral side of things, right? So we have our core instruction using second step that our counselors and social workers are teaching within our classrooms. And if students are struggling socially, emotionally, then we have more layers of support, right? We have our Rachel Ravertys, we have our Greater Minnesota therapists. We have all these layers of support that help students get through, learn skills, and not need that support anymore. And so I feel really good about our multi-tiered systems of support. I did leave it yellow on this tracking sheet just because I feel like we're still working through it. So bear with us, but this is the bulk of our work right now, is within goal number 5. All right, other things to mention. Yeah, just that UFly is still a really great program, and we saw a ton of success with it this past year. And so we'll continue to use UFly in addition to our CKLA. All right, I am going to skip goal 6 because it has to do with the world's best workforce, and we do that every December. Goal 7 will provide meaningful professional development. Wowza. I think the professional development that we've provided for our teachers most recently is the most meaningful I've seen it during my career. We have letters and OLA training that took place at elementary and for some high school, middle and high school teachers. We had FastBridge training, which is our screener to identify students who are reading below grade level, and then also progress monitor their interventions to see if the interventions are working or not working. And then we had training for the middle high school teachers with Tracy Frederick all around literacy. And so there's been a lot of meaningful professional development lately here within Windom. Okay, objective 7.2, identify and encourage and empower staff to be future leaders of Windom. So this goes back to the fact that we have lots of leadership positions available. So we have our peer engagement coaches, we have our instructional coach, we have PBIS committees, QComp committees, leadership committees, lots and lots of opportunities for teachers to be leaders within our system, and so that is great. We are well into objective 8.1. Let's go back to goal 8 here first. We will recruit, hire, and retain the most qualified staff available. So objective 8.1 is all around grow your own program. And when we wrote this, we didn't have access to the grow your own program through the state, and now we do. And we have several paras who are doing coursework to become teachers. I want to say it's 5 or 6. And so we're really close to really having more teachers who are licensed. So that's been great. Objective 8.2 is all around our mentoring program. Our mentoring program is really strong. Our principals took the leadership role on that last year because it just needed a little oomph. And so they were able to meet monthly with the mentor and the mentees and really bring some strength to that program. Okay, objective 8.2, improve the system of support for new hires. Administration has been working with HR quarterly so that we have a crystal clear communication during the hiring process, so we know who's saying what and how are we going to make sure that they get all the trainings that they need and those sorts of things, and that's been going really well too. Objective, well, we have to go to goal 9. Goal 9 will define and build a collaborative culture. So objective 9.1 is continue to utilize transparent communication throughout the district. So each building publishes a monthly newsletter for families and weekly staff updates. All of our principals do a great job with that. Monthly staff meetings are held for both the paras and the teachers. We used to only have staff meetings for teachers, but we found that paras were really missing out on the communication. So we also include our paras now the last couple of years in that. In addition, the superintendent publishes monthly community newsletters and a monthly staff update at the district level. ThrillShare makes this communication really easy. It's simple to send it out through ThrillShare, so we appreciate that tool as well. It's the expectation that teachers send home progress communication. Seesaw messaging is used frequently for two-way communication with elementary families. All right, objective 9.2, engage and empower building leadership teams to lead toward a collaborative culture. So building leadership teams meet twice a month. This year we chose not to do a culture survey because we were getting some really positive data just by talking to people. So all of our checkouts with our teachers and our paras were really positive. We used that instead of doing the culture survey. We also, we can say that our office referrals were down. All of our principals report that. Our attendance was up. And so we're feeling that our culture is definitely swaying in the right direction here. All right, lastly, goal 10. We will commit to continual maintenance and improvement of the facilities. Okay, our buildings and grounds director monitors the facilities and makes recommendations to proactively address ongoing maintenance. In the summer of 25, the windows at the middle high school will be recaulked. The superintendent is working with SWWC on a long-term facility maintenance plan for the Windfair building. Objective 10.2 seeks solutions for overcapacity issues. Right now, our enrollment is not growing, but we do monitor that every month, and so if we start seeing that swing in a direction, we will address those issues. Objective 10.3, explore options for a fine arts center and athletic complex. I don't know that we could have explored that more. I think we explored it as far as we can for right now. As you know, the project went out to the voters on May 13th, failing by only 46 votes. The board will review the survey results and figure out what the next steps are. All right, and then goal number 11, we'll make small class sizes a priority. The board continues to monitor enrollment on a monthly basis, again. And goal 12, last one, we'll maintain a healthy fund balance. The business manager and the superintendent create a budget annually to balance the needs on the funding. A tricky thing to do, but again, when we can put all of our puzzle pieces together, all of our grants and our special funding, and we're able to balance those student needs along with the funding that we get from the state. As a cross-subsidy for special education became available, we saw it as an opportunity to get a special ed administrator, so we did that recently. And then, of course, the ADSIS application was approved by MDE for an intervention teaching position in addition to the behavior positions that we already had in place. And lastly, the budget will be reviewed by the school board a minimum of 3 times a year, and that is true. The business manager reports to the board on a quarterly basis. Wowza. That's a big strategic plan, and most of the items on here have been attained.
Any questions or comments on the strategic plan? A lot of work and a lot of discussion went into putting that into place and trying to have the best foresight possible. And it's really cool to see that even though we don't review this every month, there's just a ton of work going on to make sure that these things are happening. So thank you for the update. Yeah. Awesome work. Awesome team. Awesome team. Okay, then we get to move on. This is already mentioned once, but we are going to just have an informational piece about the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee vote of concurrence. Mrs. Frank.
Windom Schools has 14 American Indian students in grades K through 12. And Minnesota State Statute 124D.78 requires districts with more than 10 students to form an American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. So we did so. The meeting consisted of reviewing data and discussing their students' educational experiences. All the parents on the committee are very happy with their child's education, and they issued a vote of concurrence. This is just an informational piece for the board to check a box as required by the statute.
Thank you. Really pleased to hear that a group of minority students, that the parents are happy with the educational process. How did you find out that we needed to do this? Like, this amazes me what this team does. How did you know that you had to do this?
I just know that it's a rule, and so we just pulled the number. And to tell you the truth, when we pulled the number last fall, it was an inflated number because people had checked boxes when they enrolled their students that were incorrect. So Antonio actually had to sift back through the list and figure out exactly how many American Indian students we actually had. And we still had over 10. So then I contacted those parents and pulled together a quick meeting. It was fast and very enjoyable, and so it's just one of those things we have to do if we're over 10.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The thousands and thousands of things that y'all just think, it's just something we have to remember. So I'm very impressed. Okay, now we are to that item number 22, additional items for the board. So we kind of tabled until now what was item number 14. So is there anyone that would like to bring that to vote?
I would move that we bring forward and add a high school interventionist on staff.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there a second? Awesome. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Great. Motion passes. We can move forward with the hiring process. Okay, next we are going to go into closed session to discuss the superintendent evaluation, and after which we will come back just to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for a very productive meeting and all the hard work. Have a good night.